is an exciting event that we've all been looking forward to because we want to learn how to build new websites for our clubs. And I am so excited to introduce David Carr, who will be leading us through this webinar style seminar tonight. And we want to make sure that everyone has a chance to get their questions answered. So please post your questions throughout the meeting in the chat. And David will be stopping intermittently during his presentation to get those questions answered. And so be sure to post anything that you think that you need to have a little more information on, or anything that you're wondering about in the chat. We'd love to hear from everyone here. And we also will be hearing from Carol Frahinsky, who is a past international person, very important person in our international Toastmasters organization. And to be honest with you, I can't remember your exact title, Carol, I'm sorry, but I bet you David knows.
Well, past international director, right?
And international director.
Have you accumulated a new title since then? You might have, but
yeah, that was the thing, is I wasn't sure.
That was the highest. Yeah. And you're a past district director too, aren't you, Carol?
Yes.
Yeah.
She was successful. We were distinguished when she was director too. It was a great day when she was there. Anyway, Carol's going to be sharing a little bit during the meeting as well tonight. And I would like to just introduce David. He is a writer, he's a DTM, an editor, a digital consultant, and he is the founder of WordPress for Toastmasters project, the operator of the Toastmost.org club website hosting service, and the founding president of Online Presenters, a successful 100% online club. He wrote the Hybrid Harmony Guide to Hybrid Meetings that appeared in the April issue of Toastmasters magazine. David is a past president of Club Awesome Toastmasters in Coral Springs, Florida. I love that name. I think we should use that name more often for clubs. But he has served District 47 as area governor, social media chair, and district webmaster. He is the author of the book Social Collaboration for Dummies and has spoken at technology conferences internationally. The concept behind WordPress for Toastmasters is to build club websites on the world's most popular publishing platform, which is used by publications like The New Yorker, by TechCrunch, marketing organizations like Disney, and countless small businesses. By marketing more effectively, organizations on the web and social media, and using online business processes to enroll guests and sign up members, we can become more successful. You can position your club to be successful in this area of online and hybrid meeting. So please help me welcome David Carr as we learn about websites for our clubs at the presentation tonight. David Carr.
All right. So I just muted everybody. There'll be opportunities for you to unmute yourself later. So I'm here because I do believe in what I've created over the past several years. We heard about Club Awesome a few minutes ago. There was a time when Club Awesome was not feeling so awesome, when we needed new members, when I was VP of Education and I wanted to bring new people in, I wanted to organize things better. And so I dreamed up an approach for doing that was based on this software called WordPress. Now, WordPress was originally software created by bloggers for bloggers. It is what's called open source software, which means many organizations actually contribute code that makes it better. And it's a great starting point. Obviously, it's not as specific to Toastmasters purposes as Free Toast Host is. And Free Toast Host also has that thing about being free, which is something, an interesting problem to compete against free when I unfortunately am not able to offer actually I do offer the software for free. So you can grab the software, and if you have the technical know-how to set it up on your own web server and futz with all those settings, then you can go to town. There are some clubs that do that have techier webmasters. But Toastmasters is what I created to try and make it available to everybody anybody who has ambitions for their club about being stronger in terms of online and social media marketing. And I would argue that at this moment, where we're dealing with online clubs, and I know some of you are trying to get back in person, but many of you are thinking about hybrid options too, or maybe the need periodically when the next pandemic flares up, the one after this, the one that's even worse, you might have to go back online again. But there are positive reasons for doing the online thing as well, in terms of learning how to do webinars and how to use online tools and social media more effectively. So I wouldn't want to dwell on just the pandemic as the reason for doing things. But the other thing that you heard there briefly is that this is used by a lot of small businesses, the WordPress software is. And it's used by some major businesses as well. It's just a matter of the budget that goes into building that website. But if you learn how to work with WordPress, you are learning something that's more of a professional skill that you can take somewhere else and you can apply to your business. You might be able to apply it to your work. So there's going to be a certain amount of propaganda in here for it. But one of the things I'm going to try and convince you of in basically the early chapters of this is why it's worth the effort, because there is a lot to learn. And there is effort involved, and there's also a little bit of money involved. We'll talk about that later. And so you need to decide whether this is something that is worthwhile for you. So who uses WordPress? We heard a little bit about this lately. When you go to the New Yorker website, it is a WordPress website. Now it's probably a multi-million-dollar WordPress website that has very good editors and designers working on it, but they start with that platform. And if they find something that doesn't quite work for them, they may contribute code back into that open source community. Disney, I mentioned just because it's certainly a big and recognizable name. Now, if you go to the site where you buy tickets for the theme park, I'm sure that's a very custom site and has nothing to do with WordPress, but their site for press and investors uses WordPress as a reasonable starting point, and a lot of other marketing organizations as well. So these are tools that are available to you. This is from the marketing essentially for WordPress itself. What they're trying to show you here is a variety of design options that are available, and also the fact that these designs, at least the more recent, better designs, are set up to reformat for display on a mobile phone. And we can take advantage of that too, and obviously that's a lot more important these days. So these are some of the designs that are available to you currently. So you would start out with one of these by default, but you can switch between them. You can try them on for size and decide which one makes sense for your club. And I have some people I'm talking to who may contribute additional designs. This is the one used on the Online Presenters website that's been working very well for us for a number of years. It's evolved a little bit from what it was earlier. This is actually the default design that I have now for new club websites. And part of the idea is that maybe you don't have a lot of text content that you're going to add right away. So we're going to use this big dominant image to catch people's attention and make a strong impression. But you do need to flesh out the page with more that's about what's so wonderful about your specific club and why they should join. Digital communicators. This is my friend Nick Licani, who was at Online Presenters, is still an active member at Online Presenters, and went off to start this additional club that meets at a different time. He picked this NASA photo to feature up top. Now, the stuff that's gone through review with the Toastmasters International Brand Police is just the colors and the placement of the logo. I have gone through a process of getting these basic templates approved. So, unless you work really hard at being not brand compliant, you're starting off being brand compliant. So keep you out of trouble. Keep me out of trouble too. Buddies is another online Toastmasters club, and I'm emphasizing the online clubs a little bit because they have to do 100% of their marketing and recruiting online. They're not typically running into prospective members at the grocery store and inviting them to come on over. This is a relatively new site, just being set up. Another friend from Online Presenters brought this home to his club in Massachusetts, Speech Weavers, and one more. And this is actually an older design for Club Awesome. The point of this page is actually to talk about how your website doesn't exist in isolation. It is and ought to be part of your social media strategy. But one of the things you can do is you can create blog posts. Remember, WordPress started out as a blogging platform, so that's one of the things it's good at. You can create news items or blog posts on the site, and then you can cross-promote them on social media. And if you pay attention to the details, you can make sure that it also looks good on social media. People can click through to that blog post and learn more about your website. And one of the habits that I, at least when I'm paying attention, when I'm on my game, try and do is whenever we post something, I come along afterwards, I put a little comment at the bottom saying, join us any Friday. Click here to find out more. So I'm trying to bring them to the website, which is the place where they can find out all the details about why Club Awesome is so awesome, so that they want to join. And you have different reasons why your club is awesome, fabulous, wonderful, whatever it might be. But these are some of the ways that you can dramatize them. And we're trying to make the club website better, partly to compete against other club websites, but mostly we're competing against apathy, right? We're competing against all those people out there who have maybe vaguely thought that they might do something about Toastmasters, but I don't know, it sounds kind of boring. It's a bunch of people sitting around giving each other PowerPoint presentations. I don't know if I want to be bothered with that. So we need to show them that it's dynamic, it's fun. We need to have images of people in motion doing things, speaking, engaging audiences, not just the stock group photo of a bunch of smiling people holding certificates. That's a hobby horse of mine. I wanted to show you a little bit about how this works in action. So this is the Online Presenters website. When they come here, I want them to look down the page. I want them to see that we have all these great workshops and they can look up the replays. But most of all, I want them to click that button that says RSVP now, so that they can come to our next meeting. Now, you don't have to use this feature, but I do recommend it, because if you register people online, for one thing, you're getting them to make a little bit of a commitment that they're actually going to show up for this meeting. And it's a way of giving your VP of membership a little bit more of a detailed lead so that they know who's going to be coming to that meeting. So after filling out the form, I get a confirmation message. It appears on screen, and it's also emailed off to me so that I know exactly where to go and when. Now, in this case, it's online meeting details, but it could also be details about how, the tricky details of finding your physical meeting place. So just as useful for in-person meetings, and that's certainly where I started. We also worked on coming up with an online application process. The idea here is I don't want people to have to download a PDF or get emailed a PDF and then print it and scan it and sign it and email it back to me. I want to provide a digital process. And I have worked with Toastmasters International to get this approved. The only sticking point I've come up with is if somebody is requesting a transfer, they want us to also send the paperwork and have the individual confirm that they really do want to be transferred. We have online payments either via a credit card service called Stripe or via PayPal. This demo site is set up to have both of them active. Typically, you'd probably choose one or the other. And so I can pay. I think because I'm wearing several hats, we might see, never mind. So now I'm a member, and I'm hopefully going to go in and start signing up for roles, because we want to get people active in the club. And before long, I might be helping to organize meetings. So I might be, getting a text, or I talk to Abe, and he can be grammarian next week. And a third option is I can suggest a rule. So rather than just adding somebody to the agenda, I can look through and I can see that there's somebody who hasn't filled this role in a while. And you say, looks like you haven't done this since April. This is probably more what we would do if we were trying to get them to speak again. So they will get a message by email, and the link here is one that they can click to confirm without necessarily having to log in. One of the reasons I added that was so that people who are checking email on their phone could get in quickly without having to type in their password on the phone, which obviously is awkward. I also do have a trick, although it is a little bit trickier, for trying to send that out by email. So if I'm signing up for a speech, then I'm going to put in my path and my level and the specific project, and that information will go in and be available on the agenda. Also, if I'm evaluating someone, you're going to see a theme here. I don't like PDFs. So rather than having to email back and forth the PDF of the Pathways project, fill in an online form that asks all the same questions, gives you the same prompts. It lets you, rate people from exemplary to really got to work on it, and add comments as needed along the way. So we'll go through the bottom, make it down here. All right. And this is exemplary. Yes, and they demonstrated mastery. Woohoo! Now, hopefully your comments would be more insightful than these are. But when I submit this, it gets emailed off to the member, and it also gets archived here. So I can see the evaluations that I've given and the evaluations that I've seen online. Similar kind of motivation, we came up with a tool for the vote counter. So I have a more elaborate version for contest voting, but for the weekly speech, we can put in people's names, and the system helps us, auto-complete the names because it knows who the members are. We put it into the Zoom chat, and people can vote. So again, this is a convenience for voting online. So here's what the vote counter sees. You see, based on the first votes, we've got a tie, and then George Washington runs away and is our table topic speaker of the day. Woohoo! All right. So I promised to stop a few times along the way so that people can ask for questions. I'm looking for the burning questions, just one or two right now, and then I'm going to go back, and I do have some more stuff I want to show you before we get into questions in earnest. Any top questions? Okay, so Lynn, go ahead and sell us.
Thank you. I'm wondering who else can see that eval. You said it's emailed to the person and that I can see it.
Right.
How does that work?
Well, so if you log in, you go to a page called evaluations, and there's a tab for evaluations I've given. There's another tab for evaluations I have received. So you can look up the history of that. I actually don't quite remember. I think the administrator probably could go in and look at them if they needed to, but obviously it's mostly for the person who received the evaluation to have that library of things.
Thank you.
And let's see, I see one in the chat about handling opt-in for email compliance, marketing laws. I have some integrations with MailChimp and also there's another one that is more WordPress based. I'm lapsing on the name at the moment. So they sort of enforce those rules in terms of keeping you compliant. Now, when we register you as a guest to attend our event, there's something at the bottom that says, I give permission for you to follow up on this, because otherwise we want to make sure that we have permission to send them the confirmation message, maybe to send them a follow-up message. It's actually the same process you use to register for this event, is what the clubs have available. And why don't we try and get back to the presentation in a moment. I'm sorry.
Can you expand on international law? One of the questions was about that, was they're concerned about European laws and like Canada, as they differ from the US somewhat. They're a little more strict over there, but I assume that Toastmasters International has covered that with you. Is that correct?
Somewhat. I mean, they definitely, when I had I had an uncomfortable conversation with them at one point where we covered some of those issues and got things cleared up. There is the GDPR law in Europe, which is quite tough on privacy. So I know I had to add some things like a member can delete their own data from the site. And so I've tried to address that to a reasonable extent. My understanding is that those laws are largely in place so that they can spank Facebook and Google when they want to. So, every corporation has had to deal with that. I think I've done a reasonably good job of addressing those issues for small business. And, the WordPress organization also had to come out with a series of things for GDPR compliance. There is I agree that I know that you're using cookies on this website pop-up on all these sites. So that's another thing that you're supposed to do to show that you're getting consent from people. So let me try and get back into the presentation, if I may. And I certainly want to cover all questions as much as we can. Let's see. So I'm going to show something about adding member accounts. So I showed you a little something of how you would enroll somebody if they were signing up as a new member. There's a process also where the VP of membership gets a notification, and once they approve it, an account is created for that new member. To create accounts for your existing members, you can do it one at a time, but you can also do a batch import using the export to Excel CSV, which basically gives you a text file version of the official database of your members. You import that into the website and it will create accounts for all your members. Everybody gets an email that looks something like this, saying you've been registered to use this site. To set your password, go to this link. Let's see. Now, a new member, a basic member, is going to have access to the dashboard, which is the administrative area, really just to administer their own data. So this is where you could go in and you could look up your old evaluations. You can look up some records of speeches you've given through the club. And you can change your password. You can change your own personal information, not too much more than that. As an administrator, you are going to get a much more complicated, complex menu. And I think this is where I lose some people, because they take a look at this and they get scared. But if you notice on the right-hand side of the screen, I've tried to provide direct links to some of the important sections. And there's some other things I'll show you where I have tried to simplify the process as much as I can so that you don't get lost in this maze of different menus. You get pointed straight to the things that are most important. So I have another little animated demo here. So this is toastmasters.org, the home page. This is where you would go to sign up for a club website. Now, if you already have a password, so Carol, for example, had a password from when she was with online presenters, you can log in with that password. Otherwise, I ask you to subscribe to the email list, or I require you to subscribe to the email list so I have some way of communicating with you. So that tells me that I need to check my email. And this gets into the compliance issue I was asked about earlier too. So I'm confirming, yes, it's okay to create an account for me, create an email for me on the MailChimp service. And from there, I can verify that this person is authentic, at least, it's not a complete bot that has signed up here and is going to post spam to the site. It looks like it's a real person, and it is. And Testy here is going to set up to establish Club Fabulous, fabulous.toastmast.org initially. If they want to register a domain name and make it fabulous.com, we can do that too. But initially, for testing purposes at least, it's going to be fabulous.toastmast.org. So I get a little bit of a waiting message here while it's setting up some things by default. But since I don't have a password yet, it's just assigned me this random password. So before I go finish my club website setup, I'm going to copy that. And I'll log in using that random string of characters as my password. And at this point, I'm going to wind up on what's called the wizard screen. Now, this is one of the ways that I have tried to simplify a few things. So I want to go over here. So this is the same thing that we were just looking at, but we're going to go through this one live. This is not canned demo. So this is asking you some basic things about how you organize your meetings. And don't get too hung up on this stuff because you can go back and change it all later. But we're just trying to set up some reasonable defaults about how you organize your meeting. So how much time do you allow for welcome and introductions up front? How much time do you use for the Toastmaster of the day to introduce themselves and then introduce the timer? Some of this is modeled on the way I've run clubs that I'm associated with, or the way they run. It might not be the same way that you run. We have a list of roles here. Some of these are non-standard. They're kind of standard for me. But body language monitor, maybe your club doesn't have that, or maybe you have somebody who watches, but you call it something different. So you can customize that list of standard roles that'll show up on the agenda. You can say that we actually have slightly longer meetings, and we typically would have 4 speakers and 4 evaluators, not 3. We do table topics, and when do we do it? We do it after speakers and before evaluators, and we allow 15 minutes. So I don't necessarily need to go through all of these individual items, but I'm just trying to give you an idea of how I'm trying to get you set up for success at the beginning here. And what we're going to do is we're going to update the standard template that we have for our Toastmasters meeting using that information we've just supplied. And it will give me the option now of changing my password and of inviting in a few other people. So you might not necessarily want to invite in the whole club. Maybe you just want to invite in a couple of officers to help you kick the tires, test things out a little bit, and so that you can do that at this stage. And it asks me whether I want to activate the member and officer email distribution lists. So that's where I can write to a single email address and the message gets distributed to everybody. So I'll keep it at yes for that. And then here, it's going to drop me off at a page that says, here are some next steps. Here are some next things that you want to do, starting with editing your home page. Looking at some of these other aspects. So if I click right now to edit the home page, get this little thing saying welcome to the block editor, and I'll explain something more about that in a few minutes. So we've been set up. We have a welcome to Fabulous, Club Fabulous, an online club. We meet every Wednesday from 6:30 p.m. That's information that was taken from the form that we filled out when we signed up for this. And we have the visit as a guest widget here. And then we have your custom welcome message here. So this is where you say why your club is so fabulous. So, you know, a warning sign for me is when I look several weeks later and they're still stuck on a homepage that says your custom welcome message here. That's not a good sign that they've figured things out. But if we go out and look at this, this is the design that I've got by default. Again, I can change that to be one of the other approved designs, but I do have welcome to Club Fabulous, visit as a guest, and it shows some upcoming meeting dates based on the schedule that I supplied. And we have some boilerplate Toastmasters International information here. Some of this you might want to leave. You know, a lot of it I would encourage you to replace with stuff that's more specific about your club. But maybe to help you get started, you might want to leave it initially. So I'm going to come back and go through more about editing in a few minutes. So let's see, we did this, right? Okay. Demo setup. All right, this is one other thing that I've added fairly recently is I try and steer you towards the setup wizard. Hopefully simplifies things a little bit. You get as far as you get. And then the next day, you're going to get a message that says to-do list. And a week after that, you'll get another message that says to-do list. So it's going to try and identify for you things that you don't seem to have worked on yet. And some of these you may not care about. Maybe you don't want to do online payments, so you can ignore that. But if you do want to do it, I'm going to take you to the right screen in the system where you would need to enter those credentials to be able to set up for online payments. And there's also a help link. And I should always mention that I would really love to get some volunteers who are good at training, who are good at documentation to help me with some of those documentation and training materials. But I'll give you access to what I have. So we have at least something for you on each of these points. Now I mentioned that it's not free, and it's not free because I haven't figured out how to make it free. I haven't come across the generous sponsor who's willing to underline the cost, and it does cost me money to operate the service. I did an upgrade a little while ago that cost about $500, and it's going to last me a few months into the future, but I need to get a few clubs to sign up as paying members at $50 per year if I'm going to get out of the red. So, you know, I have talked with Toastmasters International about their rules that say that you shouldn't be profiting off the Toastmasters brand unless you have some kind of licensing relationship. But they have agreed that I'm offering this as a service to clubs. And, you know, I'm sure that they reserve the right, if I get out of line, to correct me later. But that is something that I wanted to actually invite my friend Carr Frahinsky to say a few words about. Well, it doesn't have to be just about that, Carol, but Carol is a business professor. She is an expert on things that I struggle with, including issues like pricing, which I think is a completely black art. I'm a freelance writer and consultant, so I have to like pick numbers out of the air and give them out as proposals to people. So I deal with it, but it often seems to me that there's a lot of guesswork involved. And I'm fortunate to have Carol, who was somebody who helped me set up the Online Presenters Club. This is going back to 2017, and has been, a wonderful and trusted advisor over the years, and has encouraged me to try and take this software out to a bigger audience. So I hope that's not too much setup, Carol, but
no, it's lovely. It's just lovely. The reason I wanted to jump in here is, first, like David said, we go way back. And when I first met David, our club website wasn't nearly as pretty as it is today. But one of the things that I admire about David is he will continue to tweak it. I call it tweaking. When it's not quite right, he says, I will get it fixed. And then next thing you know, it's fixed. That's one of the things I admire about it. When we look at this particular website, it is professional. And as I was talking with David, one of the things, this is going back a couple years now, I said, you need to charge for it. Yes, Free Toast Host is free, but this is not free. David is paying quite a bit of money, as you just heard, to help us be successful. He wants this to be successful for us because he knows it is good for our Toastmasters clubs. It is good for us to continue learning and growing. It's not easy. WordPress isn't the easiest thing. And yeah, I get it. It is allowing us to catch up with the rest of the world, though. And Free Toast Host has its own idiosyncrasies that may take you years to figure out. I still am figuring out some of them. But with this one, it is marketable because WordPress is being used by so many organizations, so that if we do start to figure it out, we're going to be able to take that skill onto other avenues if that's what we choose to do. But even if we don't, this allows us to step up our game to the next level of professionalism. I was so impressed with the website, and I encourage clubs to take it on, to say, yes, we are signing up for this. It is worthy, and it'll help us reach that next level. Now, when David asked me how much should he charge for it, I did say higher than $50. I don't remember my actual number, but I said, you're charging not enough money, because it is really truly worth it. If you look at getting a website designed for your club or your business, it is going to be thousands of dollars. Thousands. And he's giving this to us at a very low rate of $50 per year. I am not profiting by David making money on this. He's not making money, he's losing money, but I am profiting by my friendship with him and my support for him. And I do think that this is something that, if it's right for your club, I think you ought to consider it. Thanks, David.
Okay. All right, thank you. And I will say, I do have a couple of professional clients who pay me $1,000 per year, just kind of for care and feeding of the website. They want somebody to call, because when they call the web host talks to them in technical language. And I might do that sometimes too, but I can at least translate. As a professional, I'm a communicator more than I'm a programmer. This in a way is just a different way of communicating for me. This is the way I think of it. Anyway, and by the way, I will say, since my wife asked me, David, is this something for work that you're doing tonight, or is this another Toastmasters thing? I will say that I wouldn't mind getting some business out of this if you have other business connections. And you could use somebody to help you with your website, or help you with a franchise system of websites that could use a similar approach. Anyway, I'll stop there. All right.
David, there is a few more questions, and so if you pause, we could ask them. Sure. I know one of the questions that was left over from the last time was, are any corporate clubs using this website?
I know the answer is yes, but I can't remember which one offhand. Now, a corporate club that had a friendly and helpful IT administrator could get the free software and set it up on their own, potentially. But actually, I think when I've talked with corporate clubs, they say, well, the IT guy isn't that friendly, and they're not necessarily willing to give me space on a server, and so we'd rather still do your thing. So I have had that conversation with some people.
And Marianne had her hand up. Yeah, go ahead, Marianne.
I just wanted to let everyone know I'm the vice president of membership at Online Presenters, and we use David's site. I'm thinking of getting it for one of my other clubs, so I'm looking at it from a different angle tonight. But I have to say, it makes things so simple, because somebody does an RSVP, they get an automated email with all the information they need. And I like to follow it with a personal email, but if I don't get to it, it's not stressful. They have what they need to get to the next meeting. Everything about this website is thought out with the most minute detail. And I find it to be such a great resource as a member, as an officer. And right now I'm working with David to put our district on one of these sites as well, which is a little bit different format, and my individual club. But I highly, highly recommend it. And I don't even know that you got the full gist of what this thing can do for you for just $50.
And we didn't even mention that I am working with Anna on 62toast.com as well on a revamp of that, which is not necessarily done, but it won't be done all year. A website is never done. That's kind of one of the good and bad things about it is there's always more to do.
Are there any other questions? Any other questions? Go ahead, Ron.
Yeah, I assume it keeps track of guests and past members too on the system.
That's correct.
How about non-members? Can you get a non-member signed up for a speaking role?
Well, okay, there actually is something where you can just type in the name of somebody. So you as an officer or a meeting organizer could put a placeholder in on the agenda. You wouldn't give them an account typically, unless they were going to join. So so it's yes.
All right.
I've thought through a lot. I haven't thought through everything, but I've thought through a lot of those things.
Yeah, I have a question.
Excuse me, Donnell. Luke Peters is next, and then we'll come to you. All right, thank you. Luke, go ahead.
Sure, thanks. Hey, David, I was curious, can we support a custom domain name? If we're hosting the website through your service, okay, good. I saw you nod your head. I think that was good enough for me. The other thing I did want to mention, so I did used to work at a web host for quite a while, and I don't know David, and I've only met Carol a handful of times, but I can tell you that for about, what it works out to for about $4 a month, that is a steal. That is an absolute steal. Pretty much to host the site would probably cost you at least about somewhere between $20 to $40 a month. That's just to have a web page on the internet. Like, that's not any of the cool stuff that David's showing you today. So highly interested, and I'm looking forward to playing around with it.
Thank you, Luke. Donnell.
Yeah, just a quick question. I've never set up a website before. So if our club was to purchase this software, or this domain from said you, which I assume you're going to be including the information at the end of this, it would be on myself to set up the whole website myself and all that. I mean, I've just never done one before, so I didn't know if there was going to be information that would be included to help me along with that process. That's what I'm saying.
Sure. Let me go back and answer one other question that was about the domain names. If people do want to, it's typically like $10-12 a year to own a domain name if it happens to be available. Sometimes that's the problem, is finding a good one that's still available. But that can be added to the site. I might eventually add some fee for just the setup involved in that, but so far only a couple of clubs have taken advantage of it. But Digital Communicators, which I showed you earlier, is digitalcommunicators.org. And I think we haven't changed it for online presenters, partly because Dave wants to show that it's on Toastmast. But the process of setting up the website, and I'm going to show you a little bit more about editing content. But you're registering, you're filling out a form that is the name of your club and some basic information about when you meet and where you meet. And then you're going to get a website that is set up, with sort of some stock sections. So there's the home page, there's a calendar page where people can see a calendar view of your upcoming events. There is a members page where member profiles can be displayed. Now, some of this stuff you might want to turn off. Maybe your members don't want to be out there with their profile information displayed. There are personal preference settings as well, whether you want to share a lot of information. But some people might want to have their smiling face and a link to their LinkedIn page and use it just as another promotional vehicle of showing how fabulous they are. Whereas other people might be more shy and prefer to have that turned off. So, anyways, there is sort of a stock template that you start with and you can modify from there. And one of the things I do want to get to, make sure that we don't run out of time, is a little bit on the editing process in the WordPress environment. So, I mean, if there's maybe one more question, and then
There
we should
is one
go
more
to that.
question from Jenny. Jenny was asking about the contest and the voting for it. I know you have a cute little feature. I'm going to call it cute, but you have a cute little feature on that. Is it compliant to Toastmaster standards on the contest? Thank you.
Well, I guess my real answer to that is I haven't gone to Toastmasters International. I have not poked the bear and gotten an official ruling on that. My reading of the rules says that digital voting is allowed. They basically had to allow it in some way, shape, or form because contests were forced online. So digital voting systems are allowed. I think some district officials might be more comfortable going with a commercial source that is, more reputable than Dave and his website. But I think it conforms to the spirit of the rules. And so until somebody tells me otherwise, I certainly think it's fine for use at a club website. And since I didn't demo that, what it is each judge gets a digital ballot. So they're filling out their digital ballot, they're submitting, and the chief judge has a control panel where they can watch the votes come in. And there are some mechanisms in there for how you're going to work around situations where somebody's internet dies, which we've had happen during contests and things like that. So you have to have some contingency plans as backup, most definitely. But one thing that it allows is we get a result very quickly. As long as the technology works, and 9 times out of 10 it has worked just fine. But you'll get a result very quickly, and you might have somebody who can't figure out the technology or is stymied by it for some reason, and you'll have to work around that. All right, anyways, I said let me try and work in a few moments to talk about the editing process. And I'm prepared to stay here past 8 if there are more questions. So I wanted to talk about 2 important concepts: templates and blocks. And these are things that I think people sometimes do find confusing. But for and the word template is also used in multiple different contexts, but what I'm talking about are event templates. So you have a standard event template that is set up for the standard way you run your meetings, assuming that you run your meetings more or less the same way week after week. Most of the time, you can take the template and you can stamp out copies of that template, of that gingerbread cookie. You do not eat the template. Just like you do not eat the cookie cutter, you eat the cookies. Now, each of the cookies can be decorated differently. So that's the people signing up for roles, the specifics about that meeting that you sprinkle on top. Now, this happens to be a magic cookie cutter. So I can go back and I can bend the template, I can bend the cookie cutter into a different shape, and then I can reformat all those individual meetings to match. So that is a concept that I want to mention, and I'll show you what I mean in a moment. And the other concept that is in the current version of WordPress is the idea of blocks, content blocks. So blocks are different types of content. So if you open up the blog editor and you just start writing, you're creating a bunch of paragraph blocks. But then you might want to insert an image. You might want to insert some subheadings. So a heading is a different block. An image is a different block. A video is a different block. And I use this same concept in the agenda editor, where we have blocks that are placeholders for people to sign up for roles. So I'll have the speaker block, and I'll specify that we're going to have 3 speakers at the meeting. And I can change that through the editor. So we're going to take that little long-winded intro, and let me try and go in and show you something. Let's see. So this is, it's my agenda demo. All right, well, I'm just going to use this website, this starter website. So if I go into the editor, we already talked about this a little bit. So paragraph block. When I click on the paragraph block, there are controls like, do I want to center it? Do I want to make it bold? Oh, I think you have to highlight the text if you want to make it bold. I want to make just the word fabulous bold. See if I can type. Okay. So, sort of standard word processing controls here, plus the link icon. Can you guess what the link icon does? It allows us to add a link. So we would enter or paste in a URL or a web address into that spot and click enter. I can also search for other things that are already on the site. So if I want a link to the calendar page, I can start typing the word calendar and it will provide me a match. And now this will be a link to that page of the website. You also have some controls over here in this sidebar to the right. This is called the properties sidebar. So when I am working with a paragraph, I'll see the controls for the paragraph. When I'm working for a heading, I'll see controls for the heading. And also this toolbar changes. So I can say that this should be a smaller subheading. And you have to think of this. This is also a clue to Google and the other search engines about how this page is organized. So it's not just the visual display that you want the subheadings in there. You want it to show what the organization of the page is and what's the most important, second most important, and so on. This is a Rsvp Maker next events block. So Rsvp Maker is my scheduling plugin for WordPress. It's used by chambers of commerce and other groups in addition to Toastmasters clubs. But what this does is I say that I want to show the next event. I could have it just show the next only, but I want to show the next few events. So show a button for the next one, and a few links for if I can't make this Monday, but I could make the following Monday. This is, okay, so this is a screenshot. This is an image that's in here. When I click on an image, I get some controls in the sidebar that will allow me to change the size of that image. So I could say I want it to be 50% of that size, and I want it to be centered, and I could add a link on the image as well. See, here's a video of my friend Jim Barber giving a contest winning speech. If I want to add his video, what I did was there is I just copied this address up top. So it's the youtube.com link. And I can come in here and on a blank line, I'll paste in that address. And this will actually automatically add the block for that image. For that video, excuse me. And this has a little toggle here that says resize for smaller devices. That's the default. That's probably a good idea, so I'll leave it that way. I want to add an image. So to add a block in general, you can click this little plus sign that appears in a few different places. I click the one over here, it shows me actually sort of a bigger display. And this is showing me all the different things that I can add. I can kind of search within this to find image. And this will show me I can do image or image gallery or some other variations. So we'll just say image, and we're going to upload one from the computer. And let's see what I can find. So I was working on something with a liquor ad earlier. So this is Tito's Handmade Vodka logo. And now this is on the page. Somewhere along the line, that menu on the side disappeared. There's a little gear icon I can click on to make it be displayed again. And I can say, actually, I just want the medium size version of that, or just a little thumbnail. So there are a bunch of options that are available here. You can also make something rounded, which I don't think we're going to, you can see that it's sort of cut off there. It's not actually what we would want. But for example, adding a profile photo, sometimes we show people in a rounded circle. So there are options like that. So also, suppose I want to move one of these blocks. I have up and down arrows to move it where I want to go. If I want to drag and drop in this, I actually have to click on the toolbar, and there's this little icon that's supposed to be, I guess, like a grippy handle. I click there and I can drag and drop. So now I wanted to look at an agenda. So this is an agenda. It has something up top that says we have a special visitor this week, better behave. We have role sign up blocks. And if we look at these in the editor, what we're going to see are a series of placeholders for these different things. So the roles, you should be able to see in the sidebar, there's a place to pick which role this is. So I would do the same thing if I wanted to add a new role. I would want to find my way over to the plus sign. And say role. And we'll see Toastmasters agenda role. I knew something was going to go wrong in this demo, and that's apparently the thing for today.
Quick post-show do-over. Let's add the role block, and we select the specific role. I'm going to add a topics master block, and then from there I can adjust other parameters like the time allowed for that activity.
David, it's It's the
Yes.
time to sell us. Tell us how to sign up.
Okay. Let's see, we're at the top of the hour. Okay. I will drop out here and I can go back to that more if I have to. But the idea is that there are blocks for roles. There are blocks for what I call agenda notes, which I think of as sort of the stage directions of your meeting. So that's where you say, we're going to take a 5-minute break, and you can associate 5 minutes on the agenda with that. So I guess the two web addresses to remember are toastmasters.org is where you go to sign up for one of these websites. You also see a link from that homepage to WordPress for Toastmasters, which is sort of the umbrella project. It's where most of the documentation is. So on that site, there is a knowledge base. There is also a complete course on how to set up a website from scratch that goes over a lot of the stuff that I've tried to go over with you tonight. So the resources are there. The documentation is something that I would love to improve. You know, even though I'm a professional writer, having the person who wrote the software document the software is not ideal, because I know how it's supposed to work. And I know how simple and easy it is. And sometimes other people try it, and they tell me, Dave, it's not that simple and easy. And so I need you, those of you who might have those skills in documentation or training materials can help there. But you can also just help by whacking me upside the head and say, Dave, this needs to be easier. You're making this too complicated. So that is a service. Carol has done that service for me from time to time. Anna has done that service for me already. We've only been working together for a little while, but she has schooled me. I think Marianne, I don't know if Marianne is still here. She has definitely done that service for me. But you know, I'm trying to bring imagination and energy to this project. It is something that has worked well for my clubs, and I'm trying to share it. You know, originally it was a one-off hack for my own club, and then the problem was that one of our officers went off to training and said, "You've got to learn about this thing that Dave has," and so Dave had to figure out how to make it available to other people. So, you know, there are things that you will have to learn. There is a monetary investment that you will have to make, but I hope you see the potential here, particularly at this time, where even before any of this COVID stuff. I always tell people that the first impression folks are getting of your club is by looking at your website, because they found you through Google or they found you through Toastmasters.org, and they're checking you out. Because think of your consumer life. Would you buy a car without looking up the online reviews? No. Would you go to a restaurant without looking it up online? Probably not. You know, maybe if somebody gave you a fabulous personal recommendation, and that obviously is something that we need to elicit from people. And I've also always said that the website can only do so much. It is a tool to help get people in the door or in the virtual room. And then you have to do everything else right to be fabulous and to make a strong, positive impression and to rope them in. All right, so that's my big finish, but I will stick around and ask for other questions and demo other stuff if I need to.
I have a question, David.
Sure.
Someone's asking, is the screen reader plugin automatically added to Toastmost? The screen reader.
And that's specific to the WordPress screen reader.
Okay. Well, okay, so one of the things about the WordPress technology ecosystem that I've taken advantage of is that there are a bazillion and one plugin modules to enable additional the and I assume that what you're talking about is one of those.
Yeah, the accessibility one.
Right. So I make a number of those available on Toastmasters.org. So you just have to, you know, turn them on essentially maybe set a few things. And others I make available on request, as long as they're reasonable. I'm looking for something that has, good ratings. I don't want it to cause security problems on my site or, because, all these clubs are in one install of the software. And so if we let stuff in the door that is harmful, it could harm everybody. But that is certainly one. If it's something that would be useful to you or members of your club, I'm happy to add it.
Here's another question that Lynn has about the agenda for online clubs. Do members just log in and see the agenda on the screen?
Well, I mean, it depends. I think, the agenda was designed to be a printable agenda. I don't know if I even showed the agenda during my demo, but it's designed to have sort of a sidebar down the left where you can have your officers listed. Because I wasn't doing online clubs when I started on this. I was trying to make things convenient for my brick and mortar club, so I wanted to make something that was easy to print.
I'll simplify it, David. I'm just
Sure.
wondering, would we print it out and have it available, or does it show up online during the meeting?
Well, no, you very likely would want to print it for if you're having an in-person meeting. If you have some people showing up online, it's great if they can view it online too. And I think for the online only club, even there, some Toastmasters of the day would prefer to have a printout sitting next to them that they can refer to, rather than having to switch between screens, right?
Thank you.
Let's
Carol,
give
did you have
David a
something?
hand. I just think it's time.
All right.
David, nice job. And so if you would, David, put into chat, where do we find this good nugget of information so we can cut and paste it and get it into our browser right away? You are amazing. Thank you so much for the service that you offer Toastmasters around the world. I'm going to pass it back to Anna. Anna, thank you for hosting it. Yay.
Thank you, Carol. Appreciate your input and all the good advice you gave too. It was very great. Thank you, David, for being with us today at District 62. We are so excited. I can see the excitement in this new website and hope that many of you will go to that website, that link that was put in the chat there, and check it out. Go in there and find out what you can do for your club. And then David will be sending out, won't you, David? You'll have some information. We're going to be following up with everybody.
Right.
That's on the
You'll
chat.
get a follow-up message as well with the recording and some other resources. And I did want to mention, because I've discussed the fee at a couple of times during this thing, but you don't pay anything up front. It's 6 months free. Hopefully that's enough time for you to check it out, see if it's worthwhile for your club. And if at the end of that time it's something that you want to keep, then you keep it. If you decide it's a big boondoggle or it's just more work or more techie stuff than you want to deal with, you are free to go about your business.
So it's kind of a brainless decision. You better try it if it doesn't cost anything. And what one thing I found too, I want to mention is that David has helped us with getting that district website set up all through the whole step of the process, all the way through. Any little thing that I have a question about, he's right there to answer questions and help us through. And I think that's, you will have that backup with him and with other people that are already using the club websites. So there's quite a bit of resources there to help you get through the process. So with that, I would like to thank you again, David. Thanks so much for this. And I'm looking forward to the follow-ups. And we'll share that website, this recording about the website seminar today, and it'll be on our website. So you'll be able to access it easily. And there's a newsletter coming out next week. So, hey, let's all make sure you open that newsletter and find all kinds of more information.